the vigil of the feast that we refer to as the Assumption, and in the East as the Dormition, is a moment for us to stand at the shore and to gaze. We have in the Old Testament already some interesting moments at that point. Moses, his body was not found. Elijah went up in a very mysterious way, and his body also somehow ended up invisibly. There is something also in the story of Enoch which is puzzling. Even between the East and the West, there is a difference of understanding. This falling asleep, the dormition, we have more, as it were, defined in the West than they have in the East, and it's very recent in time. It's with, as you know, Pius XII. And it is therefore with certainty that we can say that actually our instinct, our gut reaction is correct. The consequences of the Immaculate Conception are that there is no corruption, given that that disintegration of the body is the consequence of original sin. Years ago, I was carrying, or rather behind those carrying, the statue of Our Lady at this all-night vigil in Kilnagrot. And we had that night, when there were nearly 1,000 people there praying for peace in Ireland, we had some strange things going on. And one of them was, I could see just before me that they were having trouble to carry the statue. It was on a stretcher affair of wood. It was Our Lady of Fatima, and it was wobbling, and it was obviously too heavy for them to carry easily. It happened twice or three times, and at one point, one of the men, a friend of mine, Michael, who was organising it all, looked back towards another one behind him. "Do you find this very heavy?" And he did. And it was at dawn that we discovered what had happened. It was a little boy who had seen what we couldn't see. Children have pure eyes. And he was allowed to see the Blessed Virgin standing on this at exactly the points where it became very heavy. And also at the end of the procession, before the grotto, she could be seen looking down on us, very content with us and blessing us there from a cloud. And also other things were happening, like strange, miraculous odours, as we waved these blessed napkins to her between the decades of the Rosary, singing Ave Maria, as though heaven were replying. So it would make sense that her body could actually displace itself. And we could feel the effects, therefore, of weight. What we need to bear in mind is that her presence is closer than we think. For instance, when we're at the altar, she, having borne the body of her son, is somehow aware of its use and misuse. The precious blood once was hers, in a sense, because all the humanity of the Lord came through and from her. That could actually explain why at Civitavecchia in the 90s she wept male blood. But there are also interesting things that happened and picked up in recent times as regards sightings of Our Lady around the monstrance, silhouettes and so on captured on mobile phones. And we know from different experiences that have been given to privileged souls that she is very, very close when the moment of consecration happens and when the presence is arriving. It's something like what happened in her womb. And therefore we see the demands of heaven with regard to that. it has no sense that that should be done in a human mode, horizontally orientated. That's why when the way we celebrate physically impacts on the way that we celebrate mentally and spiritually. If at the altar, at the moment of consecration, the priest is aware of the people and as it were addressing them while consecrating, then presumably, although it's valid, many graces are being deflected because heaven is not the centre of attention. The priest can be if he's not careful. How different this is from what the saints were given to understand. I was impressed by the way that Our Lady indicated to various souls how actually heaven is close to earth and how she demands that we imitate her in her purity when it comes to serving her Son. She had this to say to a mystic, Mary of the Trinity, who died in 1942, an enclosed nun. My child, the Church honours me today by contemplating my Immaculate Conception. Men admire in me the wonders wrought by God, and the beauty with which He clothed me even before original sin could stain my soul. He who is the eternal God chose me for His mother, and overwhelmed my soul with graces greater than any bestowed on a creature. All the beauty you see in me is a reflection of the divine perfections, and the praises given me glorify Him, who, being my Creator, willed to make me His mother. Actually, that was said to the famous Sister Josefa Menandez. But the other one I mentioned also was given powerful intuitions in this context. Never appear alone before the Most Holy Trinity, but always with me, who prays within you and with my mother. We have adopted you, and you have given me your humanity. I wish to live again in you. That's the Saviour obviously speaking here, but indicating how much our own spiritual life is inseparably linked with that of our Heavenly Mother. We have but to think of the way that at Rue de Bac it was shown to that hidden sister, Catherine Bourret, that the graces coming to us were given via the Blessed Virgin, portrayed there in those rays coming from the hands. Mediatrix. It does make sense, because given that she was the perfect vessel, her humanity was without spot, and she was definitely the brightest creature that God had ever made, surpassing also Lucifer in his original beauty before his fall, which would explain his perfect hatred for her. Indeed, it would seem that as well as being shown the incarnation and replying that he wouldn't serve, he was also given some knowledge that there would be a woman, that there would be this bright creature. And he was obviously in a perfect mode of envy, which is interesting, given the effect of envy to this day on the human soul, the green-eyed monster. That leaves us then with this purest of creatures. And it's bound to be the case that she is the closest one to the heart of her divine Son, we mustn't forget also the proximity of St. Joseph. There must be a huge bonding there in that threesome. Hence it is important to be aware that we can obtain huge graces by sincerely impetrating things through these two. The Lord can't refuse his father and mother. That bonding is eternal. That would leave us then on how we outwork this in our devotion. In the East, they do it liturgically. They have a very majestic, poetic liturgy with maximal descriptions of Our Blessed Lady. They get up, they cross themselves 3 times when she's mentioned, and it's very beautiful. And in that is found their theology, which was able to be kept even actually during persecution, because it was all there. In the West, we have devotions, but are they as dignified in their execution? And one of the great tragedies that heaven must see, Our Blessed Lady particularly, and her angels, is the fact that we have devotions, but the dignity sometimes is lacking. Do we take seriously these encounters with her? Sometimes we, as it were, brush her off by doing her duty, but we haven't met her. Maybe on this feast it would be an occasion to make a serious examination of conscience to see, do we believe? Do we really believe that we are engaging with a living person, as present as we can imagine any other human being, and demanding therefore attention, engagement, and respect no less than we would give to each other? It has no sense to talk to a person at high speed. If it's worth saying, it's worth saying well. Now, to understand how the dynamics work, for instance in the Holy Rosary, it is an occasion, not of sin, but of prayer, an occasion of encounter. But it's only the occasion. The encounter must happen. Therefore, we need to use the possibility of having, as it were, an encasement of separation from other things, a prayer time where we have space to be alone with heaven, and a sustaining of a possible encounter with a music of simple prayer, which anyone across the world can say, from the Pope to the last born child who can speak. And therefore, it's important that we take seriously what Our Lady expressly wished 6 times at Fatima. She didn't ask for other things, too many, e.g. daily mass, she didn't ask for, but that she did, which means that she wants it. But she wants it done well. And by the way, she showed at Garabandal how she wanted it done. Very well pronounced. That's the bit that hurts. Even good Marian associations often in Ireland don't get that bit right. One asks, is heaven served by high-speed prayer with no engagement? If we have our eyes very much on this day orientated towards seeing that moment of engagement with glory unutterable, as she, with her body, went into the choir of angels, that would help us to reflect when we think also that she is somehow linked at the altar, that we have majesty before us, twofold, the Son and the Queen of Heaven at his side, with the court of angels also. This is what we have, not an encounter of human beings in which we invite towards laughter and applause and think of some gimmick to get it better than heaven itself.